Assalamualaikum everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. It's on the topic of self-harm and self-prevention. This is a really, really major topic to discuss, especially during this month, but it's important every single month. My name is Aisha, and on behalf of the South Florida Muslim Federation, we would like to welcome everyone in our webinar. Alhamdulillah, we've had wonderful interactive workshops last month as part of our ongoing suicide prevention awareness efforts. A heartfelt thank you to all the amazing Islamic centers and community for welcoming us and showing such great support in all three counties at IFSF, ICBR, and Masjid Al Ansar. So again, Jazakallah khair for your dedication and inspiring work. We've received many requests to visit additional centers, and numerous thoughtful questions have also been asked at our workshops. That's why we're hosting this webinar today, to address those important questions together, and so we can better understand, support, and help one another as a community. We are blessed to have our esteemed speaker, Sister Wahida Saif, who will shed light on this important topic and answer all the questions we received during our workshop and any anonymously that will be coming in through this webinar. Sister Wahida is a licensed mental health clinician with over 2 decades of experience working with adolescents, families, and communities. She began her career as a guardian and lifetime child advocate in the Florida court system. So if everyone's ready, I would like to share my screen and go over some questions. All right, so listed here are some of the anonymous questions we have received throughout our workshops, and we would like to ask Sister Wahida. So I'll start with the first one. I've recently been feeling down and the thought of suicide has crossed my mind. What is a way I can feel better and convince myself that I shouldn't?
So I would also just want to say salam to everyone, and thank you. Before I jump into the answering the questions, just thank everyone who's really been a part of this. We did all of this last year and then this year as well. It's, as been mentioned, a really community-wide effort. So just want to thank everyone who's been involved, and this as a culmination of our efforts for this part of the year. So inshallah, we'll say a little bit more at the end of this webinar. To answer this first question, feeling recently down and the thought of suicide has crossed my mind. What is a way I can feel better and convince myself that I shouldn't engage in the act of suicide? This is a really sort of heavy question. I'm glad this person asked it. Reaching out for help in this way or even mentioning it is a really, really good first step. Um, I always like to remind folks that if because this person says that they've recently been feeling down, and that is something really important to keep in mind, that thing that says recently, because it's important to remember that our moods, uh, good moods and bad moods, don't last forever, right? So even the feeling of feeling suicidal won't last for a very, very long time. So I don't mean to make light of the situation. I don't mean to say that, if you've been feeling suicidal for many years or many months or for a long time, that it's suddenly, going to go away. But the feeling of intense suicidality doesn't last for a long time, just like the feeling of being very, very happy or happy, ebbs and flows. All of our moods sort of ebb and flow. That's how we're built. We're built to hold on to emotions for short periods of time. So if you can sort of remember that and hold on to that as a part of hope, that whatever you're going through right now that is making you feel suicidal will likely pass, and there will be a time where you won't feel that way anymore. Another really important thing to do is to ask for help, is to reach out to someone. I know that's not always the easiest thing to do, but finding someone, maybe that's a family member, but maybe it's not a family member. Reaching out to someone around you who you can at least start saying a little bit of something to about how you're feeling, so that you're not the only one holding these thoughts and feelings to yourself. I think that's a really important thing to do. And here's the other thing. If they don't react to you the way that You would hope that they would react, find somebody else. Not everyone is really like, this can feel really heavy to people. So not everyone reacts the way we want them to. People get scared, people let us down. So don't let that dishearten you, and then reach out to somebody else too. I know that's asking a lot, but definitely don't feel like you're alone in this. I know that there's, so many people. I have met people in doing this work that are like, I want to help, I want to be helpful. And I know that that is sort of replicated throughout our community. So it's really important to reach out to one or two people who you feel like you can trust. And it's not about like keeping your secret, it's really about like seeking help. Because with the right resources, with the right help, there really truly is a way to not feel like this anymore. And that's what I really want to leave folks with this question. If you are feeling down, if you are feeling depressed, um, people feel that way. And the thing is, we have a lot of avenues to get better and to get help. So if you can't tap into those yourself, get somebody on your team who can sort of help you tap into those resources.
Yes, thank you so much. And from that response, I think the main point that I heard was about secrets. Like what you're feeling should not really be a secret. And I feel like, once you get out of that mindset where you're scared to have yourself be feeling exposed, it's not really about that. It's about seeking help and not feeling like you should harbor this secret and it's going to like destroy everything and everyone around you if everyone knows about it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as for our next question, how do you help someone who maybe keeps denying suicidal thoughts due to stigma or repercussions, even if there are signs?
Okay. So really good. This is a really good question. Um, People have lots of reasons to deny suicidality, right? And one of the main reasons is stigma. They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be seen differently. They don't want to um, sort of be looked at in a way that they feel is unfavorable. Another reason is they don't want to um, sort of end up in some form of care that they're not ready for, right? They don't want 911 called on them. They don't want to end up in a hospital, that kind of thing. So because of a lot of fear, generally people will be like, no, no, no. So I would say, number one, don't give up. Don't sort of, I think it can be really, um, you can get to the point with a person, who you're really trying with, where you're like, you know what, I've tried, I've done my part, and clearly this person doesn't want help. And I will say that's usually not the case. People usually who are feeling suicidal want help and want help very much, and they don't know how to ask for help, or they don't know who to reach out to for help. Um, Again, I would say, and you'll hear this probably as a theme throughout me talking today, and if you've heard me talk before, I've said this many, many times. Don't feel like you need to do this by yourself. Now, there's a difference between sort of like gossiping, and I know that we have a lot of like um, sort of thoughtfulness in our community around sort of like backbiting and gossiping and things like that, which is really good and really important. However, there's a difference between that and enlisting other folks to be helpful, right? So you want to certainly preserve the person's confidentiality and preserve their trust and all of that, but I always say this, no one should be dealing with topics this heavy by themselves. We were not meant to deal with these things by ourselves. So it's really important that if you enlist someone else that you trust that will not sort of go and sort of like start spreading, because that I know is a real concern. You don't want to do that. But enlist another person, preferably an adult if this is someone who's speaking who's not yet an adult, um, just so that I always say who who can be on your team, who would make your team of people to help you, right? So build out that team of folks. So if this person is continuously denying suicidality, talk to someone else who can give you really good advice and say, listen, I am struggling with this person. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is not to sort of give up on this person, to continue to check in with this person. It's really important, this concept of hope and suicidality. A lot of times when people feel suicidal, they themselves are not able to have any hope that things will get better for them, right? So the people around them need to carry that hope for them. And you may be that person. Even if they continue to deny it, you can say, that's fine. But I can still see that something is off. And I want you to know that I believe that you will get better. There will be a time where you don't feel like this anymore, right? I think that carrying the hope piece is critical. Not carrying it yourself is critical. Not letting go of the person or giving up on the person. And then perhaps if you trust somebody else to check in with them also, having some other person or people, again, it can be a tight-knit sort of circle of people, check in with this person and ask the same questions about how are they doing, suicidality and all of those things.
That was an amazing response. I have a question kind of on something that you spoke about. You said
Sure.
the person who is responsible for helping out the other person to not lose hope, right? To not get
Mhm.
tired of the consistent, like reaching out to this person and checking in with them. For that person, how should they manage the mental toll that's being taken when they're seeing a loved one or someone they really love uh,
Mm.
going through that? Like how does that person stay steadfast with their sanity and with their hope for that other person?
Yeah. So I really don't think you should be doing this by yourself. I think that's the number one thing. And I always say, um, as a professional, we don't do these by ourselves. We don't carry this on our own. The first thing we do when we come across someone who is struggling in this way is we go and we will confer with a colleague. So if that's what professionals do, that's what experts in the field do. Why would anyone expect to um why would anyone who's sort of not an expert expect to sort of do this by themselves? It just simply doesn't make sense. You would burn out so fast, right? So really, even if you have to do it anonymously, even if you have to do it without naming the person who's struggling, I would still say seek support for yourself while you're continuing to support the other person.
Right. That is solid advice. Thank you. Next question. How do you prevent suicidal thoughts?
So this is a very complicated sort of question. There's not one way. How do you prevent suicidal thoughts? So I think this is hard for me to answer because there's not one reason why people become suicidal, right? Um, so preventing suicidal thoughts is you can't just be like, well, do this, do this, do this, and you will not have suicidal thoughts. I can give some sort of general ways of thinking about suicide, which may sort of, in the end, decrease suicidal thoughts. One important thing to keep in mind is, we have a very sort of simplistic understanding of what suicide is. A lot of times we think that suicide is like A equals B. Right? This one thing happened, and that's what caused the person to become suicidal. So, for example, they lost their job, and now they're suicidal. They went through a divorce, and now they're suicidal. They got bullied, and now they're suicidal. And that is very problematic thinking. It's not. It doesn't serve us to think of suicide in such simplistic terms. Suicide is always multifaceted, it's always complicated, it always has a whole host of problems. Now, we, the person looking at the person, may only see the bullying, the divorce, the whatever issue that the person is going through, right? That's the only information we may have access to. There's always a whole host of things that are happening for folks. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Um, so I say that to say that suicide is complicated. So it's really important for us to shift the narrative around how we think about suicide and how people sort of talk about suicide, right? It's if it's a complicated problem, the solution is going to be complicated as well. And here's the thing. people don't usually just want to die, right? Because that's what suicide is. Suicide is the wanting to end your life, right? But if you ask people truly, do you want to die or do you just want a different life, right? People will most often say that they just wish that their life was different, that their life circumstances were different. That's the important part. So I think a lot of times you really need to get to what is it that is making them feel suicidal, right? Is it an underlying history of trauma? Is it, substance abuse issues? Is it domestic violence? Is it, what are the sort of feeder issues that are causing a person to feel so hopeless and helpless about their situation, that they think that this is the only way to solve their problems? Because at the end, suicide is really uh, the only way a person can come up with to solve whatever problem they have in front of them. Maybe they've gone through a whole other range of problem solving and they've decided none of these things are going to work, and this is the only option I have now left in front of me, right? So how do you start suicidal thoughts? I think you have to two things. You have to get at some of those root issues, right, for longer term sort of success. And in the meantime, you need to if you are feeling suicidal, you should get help. You should really, because I will stress this, there's no reason for people to struggle and to feel this way. In the end, we will go through some resources. Please know that there's so many resources available within the community, and also in the not Muslim. If you're like, I don't want to deal with the Muslim community, that's okay. There are resources in the secular world as well, that will help you with this. You should absolutely not have to struggle with this, and you should start to get help. Another way to think about this is, if you think about a safety plan, is called a suicide safety plan. You can Google this. There's some apps in which help you like come up with it on your own. Um, it's a therapist can walk you through this and do a really good safety plan, but having a safety plan in place, so when suicidal thoughts sort of start getting amped up and kicked up for you, you can start implementing your safety plan. That's another really good tool to have. So um, maybe I can, I'll put it into the chat. It's called a suicide safety plan. Um, and that's what folks should be also thinking about doing for themselves. There's an app for that. Also, they can do it with their clinicians as well.
Yes, that is amazing, amazing advice. And also, we will be speaking about resources at the end of the presentation as well. When it comes to the next question, maybe we can combine like 4 and 5. But basically, it's when someone is feeling like too shy to talk about how they feel, and can't come out of their shell no matter how hard you try to help. And then number 5 is like helping kids. And if they're ever feeling they're getting bullied or harassed, like how do parents make sure that that is not the case? Or if it is the case, like how do they go about it? Maybe their child is, acting shy or doesn't feel comfortable. Like how do you go about someone who's not easily able to talk about their feelings?
Mhm. Um, so and I've said this before too, but I would encourage you, one, I think it's after a while easy to sort of be like, well, I've tried and now I'm sort of done trying. This person is not going to change. Don't give up. Get other people to sort of ask too, because sometimes we are not the person, right? And I think it's hard for parents to hear this. We really want our kids to come to us with everything, and I hope that they do, but sometimes that's not the case. So in that case, I really recommend parents, again, it's about building that community, right? Building that village. It's really important for parents to have other trusted adults that their kids are checking in with, right? Have a little bit of a relationship with adults that you trust, um, for your kids to give your kids good advice, to for your kids to, like, if they have a problem and they go to this adult, that you know that whatever they're going to be saying to your kids will be the right thing, right? So it's just the reality of the situation. Our kids will not always come to us with every issue that they had, no matter how close we are to them, and that's okay. That's why it's important for them to have other um good friends is important too, but other trusted adults in their life that you trust, that they can go and check in with as well. The topic of bullying, let me just address that really quickly. Um, Bullying, it can be dealt with a lot of different ways, right? You should absolutely empower the child who's being bullied to sort of stand up and speak up for themselves. That's one thing. But another thing is, um, if it's getting to be bad enough, you should absolutely talk to the school, right? Or it says university here, but you should involve the people who are in charge of keeping the children safe, because that's their job, right? Now a lot of times kids would say, no, 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 I don't want you to, and that kind of thing. And that's fine. You should have a conversation with them, because sometimes I think as adults, we don't know the full picture and it might make things worse for them. But telling them, listen, we can have a conversation with the adults in your school that doesn't involve, like, we can put this on their radar, and the other kid doesn't need to get in trouble, but at least they'll be keeping an eye on you. There's many, like I said, many ways to handle a bullying situation, so that at least I'm always in the favor of getting more people, like, things on the radar of more people, right? um so if this child is leaving home, you can no longer sort of, your protection sort of ends there, right? Now they're at school. So there should be someone from school sort of keeping an eye on them, especially if these things are happening at school. So they should absolutely be made aware of the situation, even if you're sort of like, listen, I don't want necessarily anything bad to happen to this other kid who's doing something, but I just want you to know that the situation is going on. And then the flip side of that is really empowering the child to, like, maybe it is role playing a little bit, like, how would you react the next time this happens to you? How, what would you do? How would you answer back this person? Those kinds of things. um and let me see if there's anything else I want to add. um Question number 4: if a person is too shy to talk about, that is okay. Sometimes people, I mean, it's a personality thing, right? You can always spend time with the person doing other things, uh, that, even if it's hard to, like, crack through that shell, right? Again, it's important to not abandon people who are sort of a little bit more introverted, a little bit more shy, a little bit more, um, harder to get to talk, and come be forthcoming about their feelings. So all of that is okay, but it's important to still be engaged with them. We don't want them to sort of isolate themselves.
All right, yes. Actually, we have an anonymous question in the chat, and I think it kind of relates to number 4 as well. It's saying, what steps do we take to help a suicidal friend? So maybe
Okay.
if that's something that you can answer with like a different question too, I think it's a pretty good one to segue.
Sure. Yeah. So I think if you have already asked a question and you have definite, I'm going to assume that you know definitively that this friend is, and if not, please put it in the chat and I can sort of start back earlier. But this friend has said, yes, I am in fact feeling suicidal. I do feel this way. I do sometimes feel like I want to take my own life. What are the next steps? The next step is, it's okay to say, uh, that you don't have all the answers, because you may not have all the answers. But where I would start with is saying, I'm so glad you shared that with me. Because not everyone, they are likely not sharing that information with everyone, right? So thanking them for being honest with you and for sharing with you, I think is really important. And then saying something like, would you be willing to um would you be willing to go with me so we can get help together? right? It's really important to not leave the person alone, especially if they've just revealed their suicidality to you, right? Now, help can come in many forms, and they may say, no, 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 please don't. I don't want anybody to know about this. I just told you because I trust you. I don't want to get in trouble with my parents. I don't want anybody else to know. This is, there's a lot of shame and stigma surrounding this. Um, so you say something like, I get it. I totally get it. It feels so big and so insurmountable. And I I really want to make sure that you're okay. I really want to make sure that at the end of this, that you're alive. And I know that it's going to take more than just me to do that. I'm glad you told me, and we can do whatever it is you want to do, but I think it's important to get the right people on board to get you help, right? And you say that however it is you want to say that. And then you get them comfortable enough to um to tap into some kind of help. And now I said this before. Um if they are okay with, because they may not be, but I think it's really important to get at least one other person on board. So it's not just you and this friend who's really struggling, right? One other person on board, preferably an adult. If you're sort of, minors right now, preferably an adult who you trust, who's not going to go and make this, who sort of has a calm head about them. Remember, they don't need to know all the answers. It's rare that somebody with something like this, you're going to go to them and they're going to be like, oh, I know exactly what to do. That's really rare. You wouldn't, because this is not something you come across every day, right? It just needs to be an adult who's not sort of overreactive, underreactive, and someone who's going to be like, you know what, let's figure this out together. Someone you trust. That's really all you need, right? And then you can always reach out to us. We're going to go through some resources at the end. If they are immediately suicidal, you can take them to a hospital to be evaluated, right? Don't leave them alone, right? That's number one. Go with them to the hospital, let them know, and they will evaluate you and tell you sort of what next level of care that they need. If you can't do that, you can always call 911, right? I honestly prefer not to call 911 because I don't want the person to have a bad experience, and then not seek help another time after that. So I would prefer, if the situation allows for it. If it doesn't allow for it, call 911. Absolutely. Don't let me, what I just said, stop you from calling 911. That's what it's there for. Or 988. 988 is the suicide prevention hotline number, by the way, to get you sort of more specific help. But 911 will get you an ambulance, right? So you can go to a hospital and they will evaluate your friend. And then if it's more of a not immediate sort of situation and they're not immediately suicidal, then you want to think about, okay, how can we um, make sure that you're safe in the short run, safe in a little bit long run while we get you resources built, because obviously you can't stay with them 24/7, right? That's why it's important for people around them to know to keep an eye on them, that kind of thing. So if it's comfortable to let people who are sort of in their immediate sort of vicinity who are going to be around them, I would sort of bring them in, so to speak, on the team of people who are concerned about them, to let them know, and then sort of think about, can we set this person up with a therapist? Can we set this person up with other resources? Now, a word about therapy. I'm a therapist. I believe in therapy. I think it can be really helpful. Like I said at the beginning, people don't usually want to die. They just want their life to be different, right? So they need to talk some of these things through or get to some of the core issues that they're struggling with. That can be handled in therapy really well, if you have like a good match with a good therapist, kind of a thing. If you are in therapy and you become suicidal, you should let the therapist know, and the shift in therapy should be on dealing with the suicidality, right? So and there's ways that a good therapist will sort of do that in a therapeutic sort of a setting and deal with that. But hopefully that's enough information. If you have any more specific in questions, please put them in the chat. But those would be the first steps that I take. And I talked about this already, all the way at the beginning, but people, when they're suicidal, um, don't often have hope that things will change for themselves, right? They think this is just how they're going to feel and how things are going to be for themselves for all of time. And it's really important for you to hold that hope for them, to say, you know what, I think that you will get better. I believe that there will be a time where you won't feel this way. And for that future self of you, I'm here to continue to work for that. Right? We, the people around this person who's struggling, need to hold that hope, because they often can't see that future for themselves.
Right. And I think your, you know, your bond with that person can go a long way. And the way that the advice you were giving with the things to say to people, I think a lot of times that's what people who are helping don't know, right? They don't know what are the right words to go about this situation. And that's when they can get stuck, or that's probably when they feel that burnout. So I think creating like a document or learning about phrases that are beneficial for people going through this would be like very, very good to know as anyone, because you never know when this calamity could fall upon you or a loved one, a family member, anything like that. So definitely that was a good point to bring out. We also have some questions on the next slide, but timing, I don't know if you know, you have there's still time to go over those. Um,
I think so. Um, we have about 20 minutes, right?
Oh, okay. Yes. And then is it, if possible, can you X out of the what's the word? The slides and then come back in, because they're a little bit edited now. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah. I added the additional hotline numbers and everything you were talking about to the last one as well. So I wanted that to come on screen. Maybe reload the page after you exit out of the
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
you're you're good.
I don't see the edits, but I will try to reload it.
Oh, okay. Yes, probably reload it.
Hmm. Yeah, I did reload and I don't think I see.
The second slide for the anonymous questions has 2 questions now, and then the mental health resources has a couple more bullet points.
Okay, sure. Okay, so that's probably right then. Okay, I will share. Does this look right?
Yes, that looks
Okay.
perfect. Clicking slideshow. Yep, perfect. All right, so some questions continued. What are some tips of dealing with anxiety and depression, and how can we prevent it from escalating to the next step?
Absolutely. So anxiety and depression, I'll talk about anxiety first. Anxiety is uh, a both anxiety and mild depression can be dealt with, and I want to stress mild depression can be dealt with by um, uh, activating your body. A lot of these things live in our body systems, right? And we don't sort of have the time for me to go into it fully, but it is part of our sort of stress response cycle. And anxiety lives in our bodies, and um, sort of mild melancholy or depression also will be in our bodies, right? So the way to combat that is to activate your body. Now, the issue with that is a lot of times when you are mildly depressed or feel anxiety, you don't want to do anything. You want to get out of bed and things like that. But if you're able to, and this is where actually friends can come in as well, or family members, is sort of get a person to take a walk, get a person to sit outside, get a person to, and I'm not talking big grand things, right? I'm not talking about like a big hike. I'm talking about like go around the block, right? You don't have to go work out. I'm talking about a little bit, even if you start doing a little bit, activation is often the key to combating some of these things. A thing that sometimes folks get confused is they wait to feel better first, and then they will engage in some activity, right? And what we don't realize is that a lot of times you have to just do the thing, and then the feeling will follow. Right. So if you're sort of like putting something off and you're like, oh, I will do that task when I feel motivated to do it. Motivation, like intrinsic motivation, is very rare, right? So you have to actually just do the task. And then when it is completed and you have that reward of completion, then you're like, oh, that felt actually really good. And then you're motivated to do it, more of it, right? So the feeling follows action. Action doesn't follow feeling. So that's a really important thing to remember. So if we can active even a little bit, get our bodies moving, whether that's going outside, looking at nature, taking a walk, or whatever it is, or doing a task that we've been putting off, that even if you do it with the anxiety, right, that can sort of break that cycle and sort of get your thoughts aligned with what your action is. Now, if it's more serious than that little bit, right, then you should truly get professional help. And I want to be thoughtful and careful that there is a line there. I don't want to say, walking is going to cure your depression, or just lifting a few weights is going to cure anxiety. It helps. It's not going to hurt. But if it's bad enough, if it's debilitating, if it's truly keeping you from doing things, you should get professional help, because what a professional can do, and remember, it doesn't have to be long term, right? You don't have to get professional help for a very long period of time, but only until you feel better. Because sometimes people think, oh, if I take medication or if I get professional help or if I go see a therapist, it's going to be for the rest of my life. And that's not the case. It's usually you can do it for as long as you need to get better, and then you can stop. You can sort of, uh cut it down until you come off of it, so to speak, both medication and therapy. And depending on how significant these problems are, you may need to do therapy, you may need to also take medication, which may sort of, because the thing is, if depression is bad enough, it's hard to, it's like a catch 22, right? It makes you, depression can be so bad that you have a hard time getting out of bed. But it's like, if I just got out of bed, my depression would actually get better, right? But you need something to actually motivate you. So that's when a little bit of medication can be really helpful, because it alleviates the depression just enough that you can sort of activate yourself to do something. So I would really encourage, one, engaging in some behavioral activation. So just doing things, being a little bit more active, even if you don't feel like it. I know so many times you don't feel like it, and doing it anyway, because how many times do you feel better after doing something you didn't feel like doing, right? You were putting off. But if it's more than what you feel like is a little bit, please get professional help so it doesn't, because this person says, so it doesn't escalate. If you feel like it's bad, please get some professional help, because they will teach you coping skills. They will teach you how to sort of notice things in your body. And when you notice those sort of triggers sort of coming up in your body, you can employ some coping skills to sort of bring down the anxiety, bring and sort of activate you out of the depression and things like that. And a therapist can do a really good job with working with you on those kinds of things.
Yes, and something I'd like to add on to that was the fact that when you go into therapy or when you talk to a professional, they're able to give you like the healthy dosage of not just medication, but also activity. Like sometimes you don't even know what is the right what is the right um bodily movement that I should be doing, or what's the benefit of doing this versus this. And someone who is a professional, like even if you don't even mention talking about like harder topics, something about a lighter topic like activity, that's probably an easier way for you to ease into going into like therapy and talking to a therapist. I think it's a easier way for the person to get comfortable with this new chapter. So yeah, definitely talking about getting professional help for uh, other things rather than medication or just speaking about feelings. Definitely like activity, that's a good way to start too, I feel like. And then last question, how would you go about respectfully challenging people in the community who respond to suicide, mental health concerns, and regret of sins by being judgmental and rude?
Um, so this is a this is a hard question. I think, honestly, I have I've been doing this work for almost 20 years, and um I have seen a lot of shift and change happen in our communities over these 20 years. Do we have a long way to go? Yes, I think we do. I think you know, there's a lot in our faith and our religion about speaking respectfully, especially with elders and adab and all of that. So I think, you know, there is a way to hold both that and you know, speaking the truth, you know. And the truth is that you know, suicide is a problem. It is a problem in the Muslim community. It is a big problem in our own community, which is why we were sort of asked to do this. And there, I mean, we have data to say that this is a problem. We have research to say that this is a problem in South Florida, across the U.S. And so by saying that no, it doesn't exist or being judgmental about it, it doesn't really solve anything, right? Another thing that we hear all the time is that, oh well, if the person just had stronger faith, if the person was just had stronger character, they wouldn't engage in this. And we know that that's just simply not true, right? And you'll hear faith, you'll hear faith leaders talk about this. You'll hear scholars talk about this. You'll hear imams talk about this. Alhamdulillah, um, like I said, over just a couple of decades that I've been doing this work, I've really seen this shift even in our religious leadership of how they talk about mental health and suicide. And there's been a real understanding that this is um, not a deficit in character, not a deficit in upbringing, not a deficit in someone's faith or religiosity, but it is truly just a factor of being human, right? And just as everybody struggles, Muslims struggle too. And in fact, we may have being Muslim in this country might add and give us even more factors to struggle, may add a few more reasons to us feeling a little bit down and depressed, right? So I think having conversations, pushing against the narrative. I think anytime you talk about something, it's like breaking the whole topic of our series was called Breaking the Silence, right? And I think um that's truly how we sort of change attitudes is by having conversations. I think a lot of times people are also um I would like to give people the benefit of the doubt. People think this way and believe this because they don't know any better. And once they are given the facts and reality, people do sometimes start to change their minds. So also just being so holding on to that, um, hope again that this work is not, futile, and that if we continue to have these conversations, some of the people who are sort of being judgmental about how they're thinking about suicide can sort of come around and shift how they're thinking about it. That's my hope, at least.
Yes, and I think your point about, times have changed and are changing, present tense. So that's definitely something that people should keep in mind too. Like it's not the same thing it's not the same mindset of people as it was literally 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, especially I think after COVID and a whole pandemic, like things have changed super fast and just vastly as well. So that is definitely a good point that you brought up as well. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, our next slide is on the mental health resources that SFMC provides. They have a website called FLMMH, and there's a wide range of different resources on the website, but some specific ones that I was told about was, you know, that we're here for you all year long. This isn't just for this month. There's over 40 providers on the website to be at your service via email, like any other anonymous questions you would like to send in, any other type of connection. So please do check out the website because it has so many resources available for you. And then Sister Nuha, who's one of the leaders of SFMC, she can talk more about it if there's something that I missed about the website.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much, Sister Aisha. I appreciate that. I think you did a great job with it. Again, we just want to remind everyone that we're here all year long, alhamdulillah. Just like our amazing expert here, Sister Wahida, mashallah, has been leading the suicide prevention work. We have, family nights and webinars and workshops all year long. Alhamdulillah, this month, October, is the Domestic Abuse Awareness Month, and we're having our first ever, family night on domestic abuse awareness coming up on Saturday, the 18th. We'll be sharing, inshallah, the flyer and the details about the event this month, open to everyone. And every single month, this is happening all year long. We're all here to support our amazing community. We don't want people to feel that they're alone or no one is with them. So inshallah, please visit our website, flmmh.com, and let us know if you need help in any way, inshallah. Barakallah feekum.
And then the last 3 bullet points were a couple of notes that Sister Rohida mentioned. So, talking about a suicide safety plan, that's something you should do with your therapist or a practiced person. And then 988, it's a suicide prevention hotline number. And then 911 is the ambulance number, just so people don't get confused. All right. Any other closing remarks that you would like to add, Sister Rahila?
I just want to I just want to thank you, Aisha, for doing a lovely job at emceeing this, and Nuha and everyone else at the South Florida Muslim Federation, for truly taking the initiative along to set this up all month long. So many workshops in different communities all across South Florida, and I want to thank all the community members who have themselves sort of, I've had many conversations during these workshops, and even not during the workshops, but afterwards, when people have seen me in the community, where they've come up to me and thanked me and everyone else who's been organizing this for putting this together and they've told me personal stories of the need in the community. So I want to thank the community for the work that I know individuals are doing, for the work that the community members are doing, because it's only together that we can save lives. So I want to throw this back out to the community and thank them as well.
Yes, I mean, from firsthand experience, I personally loved the seminar and I learned a lot of new ideas and ways to go about this. Inshallah, no one has to go through this, but even if they do, then there are avenues and there are ways. So that's just wonderful. Alhamdulillah.